I really hope Amazon doesn't listen to the vocal minority on the internet and will greenlight season 3. We deserve it, we want it, we need it. This is the review of Champions, and I'm your host, Grandmaster. With me is a powerful panel made up of the finest champions Sakar has to offer. Let me introduce them to you. On camera, he's back. Lord Deathman released him himself from Hades. Merv, how are you, man?
Fantastic.
And yeah, I mentioned him already. Voice only, Mr. Lord Deathman. How are you?
I am doing well on this fine day.
That's good, man. That's good. Today we're going to talk about episode 8, the season 2 finale of the Rings of Power. But before we do, I want to ask you all to help us out. Like and share this video, subscribe to our channel, and join our forum at sakar.freeforums.net. There's a link in the description below. Click it, and you can become a champion yourself. Consider this your final warning. After this point, the spoilers are incoming. So if you haven't seen this week's episode yet, and I can't imagine why you haven't, but still do that first and then check out our review. So how do you finish a season, especially after such an epic penultimate episode? Well, I guess like this, Merv. You can talk about episode 7 also a little bit. Quick thoughts?
Quick thoughts on episode 7. It was amazing. I put it right up there with the best Lord of the Rings stuff that I've ever seen. Maybe not at the peak, but like right underneath of it. I thought it was a great episode. And this finale was, right up there with it. I was really impressed with how effectively they brought almost every storyline or character arc to a good stopping point for the season finale. Mm-hmm. I felt satisfied with pretty much everywhere where we left off with every character or plot arc. So in hindsight, like that just tells you how I feel about the season as a whole. Like I thought this was a really good episode. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, okay.
Well, there's a lot more detail that I could get into, but like in general, I just thought, I mean, pretty much every scene that was in it felt like it mattered to at least a character or a plot, and I thought so many of them just wound up tying a nice little bow on everything. So very happy with the way this finale went.
Yeah. Okay. Let me jump to the Grand Elf himself, Lord Deathman. What did you think of the season finale?
I think Merv now has a contract out on him from those in the Lord of the Rings fandom, because he just put this up there with like peak Lord of the Rings. So I would say you might have to go in hiding now. But all kidding aside, while I can't put this episode that high up, there are 2 accolades I can certainly give this episode. One, I actually think it was the best episode of the series so far. And that even counts the previous episode, which was very strong in and of itself. And while I wouldn't put this up against Jackson's original trilogy that still kind of stands as the gold standard for adaptation of Tolkien's work, I could certainly put this shoulder to shoulder with the follow-up Hobbit trilogy, which I know isn't as popular, but still has some very memorable moments to me and was an enjoyable watch for someone who isn't like, a PhD in Tolkien's Legendarium. So in short, a very good episode. I can't wait to go in depth with it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also don't have that PhD. I saw a guy in the after show that did, and he said some things that outraged a lot of people again. But let's not talk about that. I agree with Merv. I thought it was absolutely great, and indeed all scenes mattered. And I'm also very happy that the mystery is over. I So now we can just continue with the show without stuff like that. And all the characters are there where you want them or where they need to be at this point in time. And yeah, they already set up like what's going to happen in the third season if it comes at all. Um, because that's not certain yet. It has not been officially greenlit, although rumors are there that Amazon is going to light it every any day now. But that means they still need to write and produce it and post production. So if it happens within 2 years, I would be surprised. But anyway, I love this episode, and yeah, that's it. Lord Deathman, do you have any criticisms at all about this episode?
I do, and it wasn't exactly perfect. While I love the work that Charlie Vickers has been doing as Sauron, I think he's really held this season together more so than any other character. And this is coming from someone who sees probably Elrond as my favorite character on the show because I think he is the point of view character. But his final confrontation with Galadriel felt like a fight that went the way no fight ever goes in real life. Or it's like, let's fight a little bit and then stop to have like a short conversation, and then I'll throw you down a cliff, and then we'll stop again, exchange some banter, and then we'll fight there. So while I see that as it was trying to be more of a dramatic presentation in terms of the fight is supposed to be an extension of the two characters' oppositions for each other's ideology. I thought, the pacing of it was a little stilted, and there were some moments where they were trying to oversell some things. I think when Sauron kind of plunges the crown into her, chest cavity there. I'm like, is that thing even inside there? Like, has she been superficially injured? Is this a mortal wound? It was tough to tell in the moment, but of course, when you get to the end of that sequence, and she's receiving treatment, we do see that either superficial or deeply penetrating. The wound had some black magical elements to it. So I thought that was a little off. And I also felt, as in terms of criticism, that it was a bit anticlimactic to find out, about the Grand Elf, and all of that kind of stuff. It just felt like that wasn't the kind of payoff that we needed for after 16 episodes of build up and waiting towards trying to figure out who this wizard is. And I think they should just be more careful with the legendarium. And again, I know there are people who would prefer that they follow what Tolkien laid out, like note for note. I mean, if they did, it would have taken like 300 years just to make those 9 rings. Like, people would prefer no time compression. I think Celebrimbor is supposed to be younger than Galadriel, so why does this actor look older? All the nitpicking. I'm not there for any of that. But when I do say I think they should take care with the legendarium, playing around with some of the major characters like that, and kind of holding diehard fans in this kind of limbo or suspense over big ticket items like that probably shouldn't be done, and they should just be a little bit more careful about that. But
Mhm.
those were my major criticisms of the episode.
Mhm. So, what were your highlights?
Really, the episode itself, as much as I didn't like the choreography of the fight that happens between Sauron, I was watching the after show, and I'm still really I'm never going to get a certificate as a professional critic or whatever have you, because in a way I'm still trying to process why it is I enjoy this show so much, especially given that there's so many people who don't enjoy the show. Like, why am I able to kind of sit down and let myself be transported and really appreciate the drama here without, putting some saliva on my index finger to thumb through the index of some, obscure text that Tolkien's son edited to do fact checking, right? So I'm still kind of processing it, but I think what it comes down to me is that this show is just beautifully crafted. I think from performances down to costume work, down to special effects, especially music. I think it's just really hard to overlook the strength of all of that craft and the storytelling. I find it gripping. I find it suspenseful. But I think major highlights for me in this particular episode is I love that opening where the king, finally wakes up from this stupor. The dwarf king finally wakes up from this stupor of greed to realize the hell that he's about to unleash in his kingdom, and he makes this kind of brave sacrifice just in the opening, right? This was the cold open, was King dives down to meet this Balrog. There was something kind of mythical about that, very heroic to me, if you will. And again, I was kind of I always stay to watch the sort of after to hear the creators and some of the actors kind of talk about the work they're doing on the show. Um, a part of what makes the drama so gripping here is the fact that there's an inevitability to what's happening. And I thought that that would work against this show, but it actually works to strengthen the drama. Knowing what you might know about Tolkien's Legendarium and how these events are going to play out and lead into other events, I think that's what's really single-handedly drawing me into the show, the inevitability of what's going on there.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, there are plenty of moments in the battles. There's smaller moments when you kind of see Elrond pleading with an orc not to destroy this vast library of knowledge. He's about to lose the Library of Alexandria when it comes to elven craft in the kiln or the forge rather, and you could see the pain on Elrond's face, and I loved it when the characters rally, when the dwarves, finally make their appearance, but the prince is not there. And I thought it was just a wonderful dramatic touch that they say he's in mourning over his father, but has still committed his forces to kind of counter Sauron's Uruk army. So yeah, lots of great moments. I could talk forever, but I certainly want to give my fellow champions a chance to sound off as well too. So yeah.
Mhm. Well, Merv, I'm gonna ask, but I think I know the answer. Any negatives for you on the season finale?
Yeah, and just to deter any future assassins, I didn't mean that like this is as good as like the Ride of the Rohirrim. I just mean like I'm really enjoying it for what it is. I do think it's probably better than at least a lot of the Hobbit movies so far. I'm enjoying this much more than I enjoyed those.
Mhm.
Um, so any negatives? I say kind of. Um, I think there's a few story arcs here that are like what I would consider the weak point of the show, and that being the hobbits and Gandalf as of right now, and honestly Isildur. I actually forgot where Isildur was up to, like what he was
Yeah.
doing. So when he showed up here, I was like, "What? Wait, what is he doing again?" Like it feels like it's been weeks, episodes since we've seen him, so I kind of forgot. And then
Actually, let me ask you: do you think he's underused, or is that storyline like went too much under the radar? They had the thing with the ends, and then that's it, basically.
I mean, I think there's some things in this season that they just didn't really have much to do, for that maybe will come. I think he's a character that is going to be really important if they get to their fifth season, especially, and probably progressing upward
Hmm.
as the seasons go. And I just think at this point in the story, he's not as important a figure, but they want to include him so that later on it's like this whole, you see all the steps along the way for him. So I think right now, like his father Elendil is much more important to the story, but he's not less important because of it. You just got to keep tabs on him. But I think this particular season, like they had to include him, or they wanted to include him. They just didn't have as much as with all the other storylines that they were really involved in. Galadriel's and Sauron's and Adar and all that stuff. And then like the Hobbits feel like another one that have been in and out of so many episodes that like I kind of feel detached from them, and they don't have any impact on everyone else's storyline, um, for the most part. And I
But
also
they
felt
will.
that, but they will. But I also felt that like essentially the goodbye between Nori and Gandalf didn't really emotionally hit me as much as I had hoped it would be, because they parted ways and I really liked their chemistry together. I really liked Nori as a character on top of it. And Gandalf was fine too. And you know, also the Gandalf name revelation really gave me like a comedic level of Hodor vibes, like a great elf, great Gandalf. You know, like it kind of made me go, ugh. You know, like it didn't land as well as they probably anticipated landing. But I'm glad it's over. So that's what I mean by like kind of like I'm glad that they got it out of the way, so that now they can actually do something that I enjoy with those storylines, or disregard them. You know, for all I know, the Hobbits won't be in the rest of this show, but you see where they leave off here. I'd be surprised if we didn't see them again, but I don't know how
Well,
they're going to factor in to all the other
well,
storylines or Middle
well,
Earth in general.
we kind of got the creation of Rivendell.
Yeah,
So we probably will get the creation of the Shire at some point as well.
which would be fine. And you know,
Yeah.
I'd be looking forward to even like you know, since Gandalf departed at this point, it'd be nice to see, you know, along journeys, then come back together. And I'm sure it'd be like a heartfelt reunion at some point.
Mhm.
Not saying that's what's going to happen, but you know, that's kind of where my head's at with them.
Poppy
Um,
is gonna be Bilbo's great grandmother.
nice. And I will also agree with Lord Deathman that I enjoyed the Galadriel Sauron fight convo, but I do think they broke it up like by cutting away to other scenes, probably a little too much. Like I kind of would have liked to be all in on it at that point and really like let it drive home. But like they would have something happen, cut away to like whatever Elrond being captive, and then they'd come back and it'd be like the same fight sequence again. But overall, I really did enjoy that. But those are just, you know, minor nitpicks, I guess. Um, it, it, I guess that's pretty much it for the negative things. You know, pretty much everything else I loved. King Doran's sacrifice, his redemption and sacrifice, all within the same breath. That put a nice little ribbon on that. We see Prince Durin the Fourth become king. You know, by the end of it. You know, I'm sure he'd rather be Prince still. You know, in his own mind, but you know, we know that at least they're going to be safer because of it. You'd hope. Um, the Dark Wizard stuff was a little what's the word, like enigmas or whatever, like mysterious. Like I don't know what to make of the Dark Wizard character at the moment, and I think that's probably fine, um, because he does things that are clearly not good in a way that are not good. But he says things like, "Oh, we want Sauron to be defeated," and this is like classic, like, well, we want to be the new big bad and take care of the old big bad. So I was glad, you know, obviously Gandalf didn't buy into it, but I'm not really sure what to make of that character yet. You know, I don't think they've shown us enough. He's still kind of enigmatic was the word I was looking for. Numenor was fine. I was glad Elendil got out. The orc sacking of Eregion, I really enjoyed that little sequence. I really particularly like the way the orcs look in this show. I don't know what it is about them. Maybe like they're a little bit undersized from how I remember um, Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies. Maybe like they feel like goblins as opposed to like men who are wearing orc makeup. You know what I mean? Like that. And I know there's like half men, half orc things in Peter Jackson's movies too. But I just wanted to say that I love the way that the orcs look here. They look more like I pictured them as I was reading the book based on what I remember. You know, I just think that every time I took a you know, paused the scene and looked at an orc, I really liked all the little details that went into everything with each of them. Sorry. Uh, a bunch of great conversations in this episode. Um, even going back to episode 7, I loved everything to do with Sauron and Celebrimbor. All the conversations, all the dialogue there was fantastic. And that continues here. I really love unfortunately, Celebrimbor's death sequence, where he's basically calling Sauron out for everything that he is, and Sauron can't take it, so he just kills him. Just that whole thing, just where Celebrimbor's character winds up, it's tragic, but it's so like poetic. It's very fitting. I loved that sequence between them. And then the kind of brief, hopeful moment between Adar and Galadriel, whenever Adar puts the ring on and he finds some new level of clarity and all this stuff, and for a minute you're like, oh, they're gonna do well, and then you remember that Sauron exists, and of course he, threw a monkey wrench into that whole peace negotiations, and the orcs kind of literally destroying the one thing that could have potentially made them a part of Middle Earth and not just the enemy of everything else in Middle Earth. They really destroyed their humanity whenever they killed Adar. And they're going to get they already started getting their comeuppance. You could tell by the end of this episode that they, at least the ones that saw what happened to, I can't remember the orc's name, but the lead traitor orc, like his top lieutenant or whatever, whenever he gets stabbed, it was like, yeah, who didn't see this coming? Well, the orcs didn't, and now they're going to be enslaved for, we know the story of the orcs from here on out, pretty much. I think they're just going to be Sauron's stepping stone or warband or whatever you want to call it, slaves essentially. What was the third one? Oh, Galadriel and Sauron. The bits of conversation between them I thought were very satisfying. Again, it was a little bit broken up, but overall, all the little action bits too, Doran in the Balrog, and then the orcs attacking, and then even the fight scene between Sauron and Galadriel, I thought were all really well balanced. And just overall, like I said earlier, everywhere where the storylines ended in this episode, it's a satisfying season finale for me. I'm eager to see what's next, but I'm not there's no cliffhangers that I'm oh, why did they end it there? Why did they stop short of giving me some kind of satisfying conclusion? I feel like they really tied a bow onto everything here. And lastly, I'll just say the song that Tom Bombadil and Gandalf were singing, I really enjoyed that song. I thought it sounded great. So
yeah. Banger. Lord Deathman, you had a follow-up.
I did. First off, I was remiss in mentioning one of the most impactful moments of the episode for me, which was, as Merv mentioned, the death of Adar. That really got me a little bit more than I thought it would. I know inevitably this guy was going to get an arrow to the chest or a knife to the side or the back. But there's a moment in the episode where he actually puts on Galadriel's ring of power, and he's kind of restored to, before whatever happened to him that kind of turned him into a dark elf, quote unquote. And because you see that, I think his death kind of hit me a little harder than it normally would have had he just died, kind of wrong and strong, right? And there's also this messianic, Christ-like quality he has when it comes to his relationship with the dwarves. He's kind of like the Jesus of orcs. My bad, not dwarves, but Uruk. So yeah, that really got me. And then I got a little bit of time to kind of process maybe why the Sauron Galadriel confrontation didn't work as well for me as I thought it was. And I think it's because just knowing the future of those two characters, neither one of them is going to die in that particular confrontation. There's a long history for both of them moving forward. So that makes this kind of fight being engineered so that they could have an exchange of information. Because they're probably not going to pick up the telephone to talk to each other for another couple of centuries yet. Yeah. So that explained that. I actually like the work that they're doing with Numenor. I don't know the name of the actor, but the one who's kind of now been put in power, I guess he's the prince figure, the son of the new king. I like the Numenor arc only because it kind of low key has some parallels to modern politics. Numenor going from a kind of isolationist, peaceful sort of island that's advanced, the Wakanda of ancient Europe, I don't know, but now they've got now they've got a new leader who's a bit more autocratic, and this is when we're going to see the beginning of Numenor's expansionist agenda. So they're moving into the pork. They're going to start fortifying things, and this, I'm slowly reading through Tolkien's Legendarium, the stuff his son edited on his behalf. And you see that this is kind of a domino effect that eventually is going to lead to Numenor's ruin. So I'm somewhat invested in that story. Uh, and then I'll also point out that a lot of people are not really, including my colleagues here. I'll point to Merv, not really getting the sort of Hobbit storyline that's going on. I don't know. I really think it's hard to act so earnestly. The way those actors have to portray the personalities of the Hobbit, that's like really difficult to do in a world where everyone is kind of really cynical about things and sarcastic all of the time. So I don't know. I just appreciate the Hobbit ethos, and I also think that the departure between Nori and Gandalf kind of sets the stage. I always wondered why, when I watched the first Lord of the Rings trilogy, why does Gandalf have this affinity for hobbits? Like, where did it begin? And I'm not going to say that this answers that, but I think, what the writers were trying to do with the show is kind of establish that, hey, maybe this is where that affinity started, and hit me in the feels a little bit, because you do start to think of the first, really great three films that came out of this franchise. So, and also just lastly, wanted to agree with Merv in terms of the orc makeup is just fantastic here. I think they're doing like the orc makeup in the movies is I think especially in the first trilogy is like, it was so heavy and so like designed in such a way that all the actor could do is really scream. So there was like two movements of expression that seemed like you could do with your face: is open it up real loud to do a battle cry, or you could kind of snarl right through your teeth, because God knows you probably can't close your mouth with all that appliance stuff on it. But somehow they've really taken it to the next level and made every orc into its own individual character, different characteristics and facial expressions. Some snarl, some kind of sneer. Somebody really worked through a lot of different permutations on the orc, and the orc lieutenant, I think, is really exemplifies that craft. So, just wanted to add those additional notes.
Yeah, Merv, you had a follow up.
Yeah, just touching on the hobbits, I think just thinking about it now, like what might be missing for me with them this season as opposed to last season, because last season I remember consistently loving the hobbit bits because they were such a divergence from the rest of the mayhem and seriousness that were going on. And I maybe I feel, and I could be wrong, I'd have to look back and see, but I got the feeling that there's less whimsy with them in this season. Like they were a little more up against it and a little more, tonally serious. And maybe that's just where it diverged for me. I'm not really sure without looking into it, but something about the Hobbits this season just didn't really click the way that they did last season. Like I said, I love Nori as a character. I love Poppy. I think she's great. I like the Hobbits in general because of their fun factor. But I don't know why it didn't quite land for me, especially this episode, but like in general with this season.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair. You don't have to like everything. You know what? I think we have talked enough about this episode this season. It's safe to say we all love it, and we're going to express that love now in a rating. For the season finale, maybe for the season as a whole, but I leave that up to the champions. And I'm going to start with you, Lord Deathman.
Yeah, I'm going to give this episode a 9. And just by virtue of the fact that if one of the episodes in the season has lower than a 10, then I guess the whole season is going to score lower than a 10. But a 9 and a 9 for the episode and for the season, respectively. 9 rings of power out of 10.
Well, Merv, do you agree with that number, please?
And the fall of men is complete. Yeah, I will go 2 9s as well. 9 for this episode and 9 for the season. It wasn't perfect, but it was really, really good, entertaining television.
Yeah, and I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna go 9 and 9. 9 for the episode, 9 for the season. I think it is one of the best shows at the moment on streaming, on TV, and it deserves the praise we are giving it. And I wish a lot more people would praise it. And I'm sure, because I met them online, there are a lot of people that praise the show because they love it. So there's hope still for mankind. Let's just say it like that. That will conclude this week's review of Champions for episode 8, the season 2 finale of the Rings of Power. We hope you have enjoyed our discussion today. If you did, help us out. Like and share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you really want more of us, you can join our forum at sucard.freeforums.net. We would love it if you do that. We will come back if the Rings of Power does too. So in the meantime, you can check out our 2 other review series for Agatha All Along and The Penguin, currently running on our channel. Or our Star Trek project, where we just dropped episode 10 for, dealing with Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. Or our latest movie review for Joker Folie à Deux. So there's lots to see, people. Enjoy it. For now, I thank you all also on behalf of our champions here and wish you to never be binded. Bye.